Hey everyone, welcome to your restorative class. I am bringing you today some specific heart opening and spine lengthening shapes today. I feel like it's a good time for that, something that it can be really useful. And let's see, so we're going to start out seated. I'm seated in Virasana Hero's pose. Virasana. Vira means hero. Asana means pose. And so what this looks like from the side is just sitting back on the heels, or in my case, I'm sitting back on something that I have wedged in between my heels, which are two blocks. You could use two books. You could fold two pillows together. You could wedge some blankets in between the ankles. And the idea with the hero's pose is to let the tops of the feet be flat and come to the tops of the shins. So, depending on what is going on with your ankles, that can be challenging sometimes. It's pretty hard for me to do that on my right side because of old injuries. So the elevation of the sits bone is really helpful. As we work with those ancillary body parts like ankles and toes, start to relax those, let them lengthen out. Just continue to add props underneath the sits bones, especially too if knee flexion, like bringing your knees into that extreme flexed position, is challenging. Continue to add height underneath the sits bones. All right, so I want to settle in here just to take a few moments to sit nice and tall, close the eyes, soften the shoulders and the elbows. Placing the hands on the thighs or in the lap. I like to place my hands facing down in a gesture of grounding and stability. And as you start to settle in here, drawing the awareness inward, and the focus of our restorative practice, whether or not there's a theme, is always to return to what's true for you within. So closing the eyes is one really nice way to drop into that sense. Blocking out the external distractions of the world around you. Starting to tune into the rhythm of the breath. Breath is so key. It's an anchor point, it's a metronome, it's a guide and a teacher for our practice. Whether we are on the mat or off the mat, starting to tune into the sound of the breath, the texture or the sensation of the breath, and the cadence of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. We'll take 3 breath rounds here to allow ourselves to arrive into the body, into the practice, onto the mat. And if there is a particular purpose or intention that is arising for you today, the purpose of why you showed up to your mat, the intention for your practice, for your day. You might even repeat that to yourself 3 times. You can repeat it out loud or silently, internally. Start to draw the chin into the chest. Take a breath into the back of the neck and the shoulders. Breath out. You can blink the eyes open and just take in the space around you, colors of the floor, and temperature against your skin, texture against your skin. And so before we settle into our stillness, we'll do a little bit of preparatory work, and we'll do something I haven't done this in a while. It's called calf smashing. So taking a towel or a blanket and rolling it up like a big long Tootsie Roll. And we'll take that right behind the backs of the knees, the upper calf. And see if you can sit yourself back here, kind of like you were just seated in hero's pose. And if it's way too much to lean all of your upper body weight back there, you can take the weight into the hands and just kind of lean forward. Again, checking back in with the breath. And if you're able to, maybe you play with sitting back a little bit, sitting up tall. You can add on a little bit of arms here to distract ourselves. Maybe if that sensation is really painful, it's just enough to breathe and bring the weight back into the hands. But if you're able to interlace your fingers to the webbing, press the palms away from you, and then reach those palms up towards the ceiling. So the biceps start to come alongside the ears. Deep breath in here. Deep breath out. You can release the arms. We're going to just slightly move that blanket roll back a little bit. So now it's like more into the middle of the calf, kind of maybe towards the top of the Achilles tendon. Sit back a little bit more. Notice how that sensation changes. Once more, interlacing the fingers to the webbing at the chest if you're able. If not, don't worry about it. Maybe the opposite thumb is on top. Press the, actually, just kidding. Let's take the hands behind the low back. And again, you can interlace the fingers to the webbing, or you can just make fists behind your low back, pull your elbows wide, and lift up tall. And if you're interlacing the fingers to the webbing behind the low back, you can stretch the knuckles away from the back body. We'll just take 3 breaths here. And we'll start to release out of that. Move that blanket roll out of the way. And then we're gonna bring something underneath the elbows in front of the knees. So like as if you were going to come into child's pose, about where your elbows would be resting. Maybe it's stacks of pillows or blankets or blocks if you have them, right underneath the palms of the hands, and then walk down onto your elbows. And you could start to move the hips back towards the heels like you're coming into child's pose. You stretch the arms forward as you relax the head. Maybe the head moves between the biceps. The forehead might reach the floor. It might not. It's okay if it doesn't. Take a big breath in here. Big breath out. If it feels accessible, you can start to bend the elbows. Thumbs come to rest behind the nape of the neck. And if you're moving in that direction, you might walk the elbows forward a little bit more. Find a little bit more stretch along the tricep, chest moving a little bit more towards the thighs. And we'll stay here for about 5 slow, deep belly breaths. One more big breath in. Big breath out. If you have your elbows bent, stretch your arms forward, straighten out through the elbows. And move your heart forward so that you're coming back into this tabletop shape. You can walk up onto your hands. From here, maybe if you're using blocks, you set those blocks off to the side. We'll set up for a little bit of a back bend. Again, a little bit of heart opener, a little bit of length for the spine, and slight compression to the lumbar spine, low back. So Sphinx pose, in a way that is restorative, could look a couple of different ways. I have a pillow underneath my elbows, which for me, because this pillow is pretty thick, increases the compression in my low back. So it's a little bit more of an intense back bend. And you can also decrease that sensation by walking the elbows forward. And so it looks a little bit more like a Superman pose. Okay, if you do have books or blocks, something at home to maybe rest your forehead on, you could do that as well. You don't have to have something underneath the chest or the armpits, but it's just kind of nice in a restorative class to really truly be able to relax the muscles. To just soften into a shape without any effort. Continue to bring the awareness back to the breath. Imagine as if you could send your breath into the back ribs, the back of the lungs. We'll be here for about 5 deep, slow belly breaths. One more big full breath in. Long, smooth, slow breath out. And start to lift your head. Walk the palms of the hands underneath the shoulders. Pressing up to hands and knees. And then let's explore this child's pose with the elbows down on the prop. Maybe it's the prop that you were resting the chest on. One more time. So we'll revisit that. Elbows elevated on some kind of a prop. As you sink the hips back to the heels, bring the palms into prayer position. Let the head become heavy. You might bend the elbows and let the thumbs rest at the nape of the neck. And if you're doing that again, see if you can walk the elbows forward a little bit. 5 deep breaths here. So each time you exhale, let the head, the neck, the spine, the shoulders, the chest get a little bit softer, a little bit heavier. And last breath in here. Breath out. Lengthen out through the arms if you had your elbows bent. Make your way back through tabletop. Take your time with your transition. Okay, so now we'll set up for our next shape, and we'll need maybe a pillow or two about where your chest just was laying, running the width of your mat. And then you're going to want something, you're going to want some space in between this elevation of pillows or cushions, space for your arm right here, and then something to support the side of the head. So that might be folded blankets, it might be blocks. You might even do, like, if you're using a book, and then a blanket on top to really soften it. So we're going to start out by lying on the right side. The right ribs are going to relax onto the surface of the cushion, the elevation of the cushion. So you're going to nestle that right hip behind the lift of the pillows. And then the right arm comes between this valley of whatever you're going to rest your head on and whatever's supporting the ribs. And you're going to come to the back of your right shoulder and the side of your right side of your head, it's the right ear. And rest there for a moment and kind of notice, like I'm noticing as I lay down into this, that my head or my neck is a little bit arched and stretched, so I'll add more height underneath my head so my neck is neutral. And that might just mean folding the blanket over once more or adding another blanket. So right palm facing the ceiling, stretch that right arm out, left palm right on top of that. It's like you're in fetal position, but a strange fetal position. Knees can stay bent the whole time. On your inhale, left arm, sweep that up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, let that left arm kind of explore the space behind you, almost like you're going to take a backstroke, but really slow. Continue to breathe here as you move that left arm behind you. You could also think of this as kind of a half of a snow angel. I'm not moving all the way to my back, I'm still on my right side. But if there were snow there in that space behind me, I'd be sweeping my left arm through it, making half of an angel's wing. And now we're going to roll a little bit more onto the back of the head. So be sure you have something supporting the entire width of the upper back. And that left arm's probably still floating in space. There's no need to try to get your left shoulder down onto the mat. You could kind of just find a place to rest your left arm, whether it's floating in space or whether the left hand has found the floor. Take a few breaths here, resting on the back of the head, a slight rotation of the spine. I'm mainly noticing the front of the left chest, front of the left shoulder, taking 5 deep, slow breaths here. One more big breath in. Big breath out. So from here, we'll move the knees up towards the ceiling, scooching towards the center of whatever's underneath the upper back. So now the thoracic spine and the heart is facing the ceiling. Both of your arms are stretched out wide. Knees are bent, feet are planted. Big breath in here. Big breath out. We'll pause like this. We'll stay here for about 5 breath cycles. But if you need to make any adjustments, like if you need to add more height underneath the upper back or you need to lower the height, feel free to do that. Or if it's feeling kind of off center, make those little micro adjustments. And so we'll start our 5 breath cycles here now. Last 4. Last 3. Last 2. Big breath in, big breath out. From here, we're going to roll all the way off to the left-hand side, so it's like you're starting again in fetal position with the elevation underneath the left ribs and supporting the left side of the head. So you can simply just roll off to the left side of your mat. I'm just going to switch my orientation so that I'm still facing you, if my kitty will allow. A little carpet ride. Alright, so settling into your left side, make space for that left shoulder to settle in between the valley of whatever's underneath the head and the ribs. Bending both those knees. It's okay if you need a different level of support on this side. It's really normal to have differences between right to left. And just start out by letting your left palm face the ceiling, stretch that arm out nice and long, place the right hand on top. Take a big breath in here. Big breath out. And we'll add on that movement of the right arm up towards the ceiling. And then just allow the right arm to explore the space behind you. Kind of like you're doing that really slow motion backstroke or that half snow angel. Keep that motion nice and slow. Don't force it. but allow it to be exploratory. And if there's one spot that feels like you need to pause and stay there, do that. Pause and stay there. Start to roll a little bit more onto the back of the head. So opening the chest a little bit, but we still have our knees pointed off to the left, and we're still rotating the hips. It's like you're kind of in this almost twist. In the right arm, it doesn't need to touch the floor, although it might start to get closer to the floor the longer you stay here, but that's not the goal. The goal is to just simply breathe, be in your body, notice what you notice. Five deep, slow breaths here. For 4. 3. 2. Last one. And then one more time, we'll roll all the way onto the back. So the thoracic spine is still being elevated. You're rolling onto the back of the head. Now your hips, the back of the hips are squarely on the mat. Maybe the knees are bent and the feet are planted, or you could stretch out through the legs if you like. Breathe into the front ribs. Breathe into the belly. We'll be here for 5. 4. 3. 2. Last one. Really gentle with your exit. You can roll off to a side and find fetal position. You can also press into the elbows and lift yourself straight up to a seat. We're just going to release out of that so we can come down to Shavasana. I'm going to leave my cushion, my pillow where it was, and just turn so that I can rest the backs of my knees on this cushion. I'm going to tip it at an angle by taking a folded blanket underneath the side of that cushion, so it's like this little reverse incline. You can take a peek at me if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Well, this is optional. Any way you want to come into Shavasana, feel free. You could even come into an upright seated meditation. We'll be here for about a minute. starting to settle in. Big breath in through the nose. Open the mouth, exhale the air out. Feel the weight of the body become heavy. Heavier still with each exhalation. Let it all go, let it rest here. And taking a minute of silence together. The Taste of Sky by Mark Nepo. Of magic doors there is this. You do not see them even as you are passing through. Often as we are being transformed, we cannot tell what is happening. For while in the midst of staying afloat, it is next to impossible to see the ocean we are being carried into. While struggling with the pain of change, it is often impossible to see the new self we are becoming. While feeling our hand pried loose by experience, we seldom can imagine what will fill it once it is opened. As the days rinse our heart, we can feel something unseeable scour us through. Though we can't yet imagine how much fresher milk and sky and laughter will taste once we are returned to the feeling of being new. Feel free to stay in your Shavasana as long as you like. And if you're ready to move on, you start to bring the awareness back to the body, back to the breath. Awakening through your fingertips and your toes. A breath in, stretch your arms up and overhead. If you're on your back, on your breath out, exhale off to the side. Continue, press into your hands, rise up to a comfortable seat. Feel your spine grow tall. Feel your sits bones root. Joining the hands together at the heart, bowing the chin into the chest. Offering reverence and gratitude for our practice. May we use the fruits to serve our highest good, share it with those around us that we love or who could use healing. Together we send love and healing to all sentient beings around the world that may be suffering. May they be happy. May they be free. Namaste.